You think luxury client and you think out of reach. Someone who has multiple homes, maybe in multiple countries. To me, luxury is being able to buy a home. Not a luxury that's unattainable, but the luxury that is attainable. The ability to buy a home, make it yours, design it the way you want it, paint it the way you want it, decorate it the way you want it. I think that is one of the most beautiful pieces of luxury that you can have. I think we all think in terms of aspirational. And for me, your vision becomes your reality. How do you envision your life changing with what we're going to do together?
Hello, everyone. I am so excited today to welcome Sherri Anne Green to the show. She is going to bring a wealth of information to us on how she's building and thriving in her business. And before we get to the meat and potatoes of all of it, Sherri, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your career journey and let our listeners know where you're coming from and all the things about your business.
Sure. So I'm in Washington, D.C. I live in the neighborhood of Georgetown, which a lot of people have heard of. I work in residential real estate. And before being here, I was in advertising and marketing for 17 years. I worked on the Hill for a tiny bit. And then my very first job out of college, I was a consultant for my sorority, which allowed for a lot of skills to be set right at the very early stage the minute I got my diploma. So it's been a fascinating journey to get to today, but I really think I've landed on the place I was always meant to be. It was just an interesting path to get here.
Advertising is one of those paths where you could have been in many different aspects of advertising, and seeing
Yeah.
how you're utilizing that advertising background in the promotion of your business, brand awareness, marketing, all of those key pieces. I'm sure there are a tremendous amount of skills that are transferable. And again, like if you don't follow Sherri Anne, her information for her Instagram will be in our show notes. So go follow her. But she has got some amazing social media, and what I like about what you've been able to do with that background is tie that into more of a lifestyle and community-based social versus it's all about me. So tell us a little bit about those skills and how that helped you get started in real estate and getting your brand awareness out there.
Sure. It's one of the things that I really thought about from the beginning before I even really had too many sales under my belt. I sat down with a graphic artist that had come from the agency that I worked at. I sat down with a strategist and we really talked about what is it that sets me apart? How do I think about things differently from maybe other agents in the marketplace? And we really wanted to set the tone. And the word that kept coming up was vision.
That's a great word.
Yeah, it is a great word, and I'm a very visual person just in myself, but the whole idea of creating this vision for yourself, what do you envision as your next chapter of life? How do we see what your home should look like? How should it feel? How should it exist? So all of that kind of came to being. So this whole creating a vision of your life and your lifestyle was something that really struck me from the very beginning as the way that I should talk about what I was doing. And it really reflected what I had seen in my own purchases. How does a purchase change someone's lifestyle? How does it start their next chapter of life? How does it change their financial situation? So it's all tied together in that vision of what the real estate purchase or, sale should be like.
What I appreciate about that is so often when we as realtors hear the word vision, we think of the woo woo or the hokey type of I need to have a vision that I put on my wall and that's my vision for my business.
Mhm,
And I really appreciate what you said about how that you translate that into the client. So, yes,
mhm.
it's vision. It is the word vision, but at the same time, it's like, what does your next chapter look like? It doesn't have to be the thing that you pin on the wall and leave there for 50 years until you sell your business. It is what do you see as progress or transformation in your own world to tie that back. And so, yes, you use the word as the vision of how you want to build your company, but you allowed it to be something fluid versus something concrete.
Absolutely. I think we all think in terms of aspirational. And for me, your vision becomes your reality. How do you envision your life changing with what we're going to do together? Right? You're going to increase your financial portfolio or divest of something because you need those funds to do something else, whether it's buy a next home or send your kids to college or retire, whatever it may be. And so it is fluid. And I think that's the way to think about it. We all do need those aspirational things that we think about. How do we see our life going? But I think what I think about is how does that vision take shape in reality?
Absolutely. And you mentioned another word there, portfolio. And I know in the past you and
Mm,
I have chatted about how you view every single person that's purchasing a home as building a portfolio, whether it's just the home or if they're
yeah,
actually building an investment portfolio. And I think that's how we initiated one of our conversations. We were talking about, now I understand that you work with clients that build portfolios. And then you walked me back and shared, like, yes, and this is how we view it differently. Share that mindset with us.
absolutely. I think a lot of times when people hear that their client has a real estate portfolio, or you think luxury client and you think out of reach. Someone who has multiple homes, maybe in multiple countries. And certainly I deal with clients in that caliber. But I also deal with clients who will buy one home in their lifetime or two and not have multiple homes at once. And the way that I look at it is that it's everybody's luxury. Everybody has a real estate portfolio. Everybody has a portfolio of whatever their assets are. It's their savings account, their checking account. Do they have a retirement fund? Do they have stocks? Do they own a home? Do they own a car? All those things create their financial portfolio. And I believe that no matter how big or how small the purchase is, it's important for a client to think about it in that way because it elevates what they do and it is what it is. And I think they should be afforded those words as well as somebody who has 4 homes all over the world.
Right. And it goes back to, I'm tying on some of your taglines, but that luxury relates to everyone because you say we often mentally, when you mentioned luxury, we defined that word in our minds as a high dollar or multiple properties or living extravagantly.
Right.
And that's not the mindset that you bring to your buyers either. I mean, yes, there are those, but that luxury is a little bit of a different definition.
To me, luxury is being able to buy a home. And I know for some it's gonna sound like that shouldn't be it, but I do think it is a luxury, and I think you should look at it that way. Not a luxury that's unattainable, but the luxury that is attainable. That's the
Mhm.
way I see it. Because the ability to buy a home, make it yours, design it the way you want it, paint it the way you want it, decorate it the way you want it. I think that is one of the most beautiful pieces of luxury that you can have. And it doesn't matter if it's a studio or it's a 7-bedroom house. To that person and to their portfolio, it is their luxury. It's the largest thing they're ever going to buy, most likely. And I think we should honor that. And I think that we should treat that as a luxury because every client is spending an exorbitant amount of money on their purchase based
Yes.
on their reality and their situation. And that should be honored. That should be seen as a luxury, and I think that every client should be treated that way. I treat all of my listings very similarly. Certainly, some need to be in other publications like Wall Street Journal and Mansion Global and the Robb Report because of who the likely buyer is going to be for that property. But all of my properties deserve professional photography and some sort of video showcase to make sure we are reaching everybody and telling that story.
Yes. You triggered a thought in my mind. I had gone to the 1,000 Watt Summit earlier this year where they were talking about the average age of the first-time home buyer, and it ties to your luxury mindset in that they were saying that the average age of the first-time home buyer is 37 years old, and they ran this artificial ad campaign that showcased, I call them children because I'm a little bit older, but people in that age bracket, that I bought a home because I wanted to be able to let my cat walk across the counter, right? I bought a home because I wanted to hang the wallpaper that I really liked or leave my clothes on the floor. And there was another gentleman standing in the front yard with a rake, picture this, whatever your vision of a 35 to 37-year-old is, holding a rake in his white tank top and says, "I just wanted the pleasure of yelling, 'Get off my lawn.'" And you're right. That is their reality of luxury because until now, they've had to pick up their clothes, keep their cat off the counter, and get yelled at for going on someone else's lawn.
And they can't paint their bedroom purple.
That's right, and so I love how you're framing that and tying those 2 together because it's the reality of our housing market right now too, right? We are catering to a little bit of an older generation and that first-time homebuyer, and oftentimes they have more money. They've just had to wait till they pay off student debt or other things that have come along in life, and they're also very mobile, and so, they haven't decided where they wanna live, so it truly is a luxury, as well as, like you said, the higher end clients, the multi-million dollar clients, hedge funds, all of those, that's also luxury too. So,
Right.
my favorite thing about the podcast is getting to learn different articulations of words and putting them into play because it does help you become a better agent. And so, all of you listening, like, take notes on this when you're meeting with your first time home buyer.
Mm.
Explain to them that this is a luxury. Like, you are my luxury buyer, because sometimes first time home buyers are like, oh, do they have time to work with me? So it just changes that whole perspective.
That's exactly it, and I think you know, treating your clients that way is not only great for them, and that's where it should start. We
Mhm.
are in the service business. I believe that wholeheartedly. I am not in sales. I am
Mm.
in the business of service, and
Mm.
the service will turn into a sale eventually, whether it's today or next year. And when you create that kind of relationship with your client, those are the people who keep coming back to you because they know that you're in it for them. They
Mhm.
know that you are in it, to see them succeed, to see their life change. And that, to me, is the meaningful part of what I do
Yes.
because that is making a real impact.
Absolutely. And another thing you'll find about Sherri Anne is when you check out her website, you'll see that she's a senior specialist. Now, I want to like dust off some of the thoughts on this. We get the certifications and we become senior specialist or luxury specialist or investment specialist, and we go get the designation. And again, with you and this is I truly believe this is because of your advertising background. You're able to take things to the next level, right? We see it on the paper, senior specialist, and you go and you paint like a mural on the side of a 100-foot building that paints an entirely different picture. So when you work with your seniors, it goes back to lifetime of a client. And how are you utilizing that piece as a large portion of your business?
It's true. I have worked with, I would say 25% of my business over the last 18 months has been with people who are 80 years and older, and it may be more than that.
Wow.
Yeah, and I love them. I mean, they're just the sweetest people. And what I love about working with them is the protection of them because I have parents in that my mom's gonna kill me, who are in that age bracket, right? And my volunteer work is also with seniors. I do volunteer work. I'm on the board. I'm the vice president of the Georgetown Village. And if you don't know anything about the Village movement, it was started in Boston, but it is a membership-based organization that encourages community conversation to keep seniors engaged in their community longer. Hopefully that allows them to stay in their homes longer, right? Where they're comfortable and where they know everybody. So, it's part of just my passion in life is helping people, and I guess that's attracted to them. None of my clients have come from the Village, so it's not a lead generation source for me, but it is something that I feel strongly about. But I love working with seniors because I think that there is a sense of respect that they have, and we deserve to offer them a great deal of respect as well. So there's this mutual respect, and they know that I know what I'm doing, that they understand, they listen, they want to learn, they're fascinated by the process, and they understand. And they can tell when you're genuine really quickly. And so that is something that, draws them into you. And I also think part of the reason I work well with them is I can be an over communicator. I think that communication is extremely important. And I had a client one time tell me, "Yes, I know you've told me that 3 times already." And I said, "Yes, but wouldn't you rather that than me never to tell you or forget to tell you?" And he said, "Yeah, I would. I'd rather know, but you do a good job of that." And I think that that's helpful too, because our seniors want to know and they want to know that everything's moving. Okay. And even if it's a daily check in of, I don't have any updates, talk to you tomorrow. I think that has something that's resonated with them, and I like working with their whole family too. I like watching that dynamic of who gets involved and if they have anybody to get involved. Some do and some don't. So it's fun to work with them.
Well, and I think it lends itself to future business too, when you can
Yes.
show that you care, which is what it sounds like. And
Mm,
communication, in my opinion, right now in real estate is a lost art. We're very much digital communicators, and
yeah,
digital is good. I have clients that that's all they want is the text message update.
absolutely.
A lot of our clients are busy and working, and that's how they afford homes.
Yeah.
And there are that population that they need a voice, they need to hear.
Mhm.
And so when you think about longevity with a client, when you're caring for the parents, think of the opportunity because again, chances are you're communicating with the family at that point too. I know if my parents were selling their home similar to yours, they would be calling me and the agent would be calling me and there's opportunity there.
That's very true. One of my favorite clients ever, she was 80 something, and initially she had decided she wanted to talk to me, and she told her daughters, at least one of them, and that daughter pre-interviewed me. So she called me on the phone, said, "My mom wants to call you. Here's her name." And I said, "Great." And so then I spoke with her, met with her in person, and the daughter eventually said, "Look, she's got this. She's good to go. She doesn't need my help. I just wanted to, sort of vet you." And so we sold her house. And then a few months later, the daughter called me and said, "Now I want you to sell mine and buy me one." And so that was the greatest, gift. And the day that this client got her offer, the 80-year-old, all of the daughters came over to her co-op. I came over, we ordered pizza. We all went through the offer, and it was literally like one of the very few times where we have an answer. Go counter. I literally ran to the bedroom, closed the door, called the agent, countered, on the phone, got an answer, hung up, went back to the daughters. We all talked about it, countered back. We don't really do that, in real life. People see that sort of on television. This was one of the few times where I literally was negotiating in real time with the entire family sitting around a pizza.
At the kitchen table.
And it worked. It was great. It was great fun, and it was great for them to get to see me in action too and know that I was looking out for their mom, and that was really special.
And one thing I've done worked with my clients on over the last couple of years, regardless of your age, we're seeing a lot more in the multi-generational
Yeah.
housing creep up. We saw that last year. We bumped up, I think, to 17 or 18% per NAR. And so getting with your clients, even if you're younger, get with your clients and find out where their family is. Are they
Mhm.
thinking of moving to the area? Because even if you're a younger generation realtor, chances are you're in that space where you may be building a family or your parents want to move near you or one of the other siblings. And so get to know your clients' parents' plans, whether you know their parents or not. And for me, the last couple of years, I'm very much like you. I've sold more homes to my friends' parents than I have my friends because my friends are settled in their home right now with where they are in the phase of their life, still working, potentially still have children or like the area. And so I'm working with the parents to either move them to their forever homes or move them to the area or outside of the area. And so I just don't miss that opportunity to grow your database through your sphere's older generation of their family.
That's very true. I think we're seeing a lot more of that, and I think as the, boomers pass on this generational wealth, we see those people being able to purchase, and then as they retire, we're seeing them make choices, and I've seen a lot more make choices to be closer.
Mhm.
We moved a family or a couple, now they're a family, but we moved a couple years ago, and as soon as we did that, her mother got wind that they had bought a new house. She bought a house, and then his parents got wind that she bought the house, so they bought a house.
Yeah, we won't call that tip for tap.
But it all worked out, and we were like, "Well, this is fun." So we got to move everyone within 12 months. It was really great to see. And then I have clients now who are buying very young, but buying a place that his parents can come and stay with him in very often. And I just think that's really sweet, that it's sort of the tides are turning, that young people want their family to be close to them and they want them to be even potentially in the house with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, another side of it, like you mentioned, generational wealth, we're seeing this as well, where I've had a couple of clients where their family members have passed, or there's been a transition of funds to them and helping them buy additional investment properties or a piece of land that they'll build on at some point. And I always think of this when we think of our just listed, just solds, right? If you do just listed, just solds, that's great. But think about, are you sending it to a neighborhood or are you pushing that out to your sphere? Do both if that's what you need to do. But if you're not sending those new listings out to your sphere, you're missing a potential opportunity. And that's where we see some of that. You may have a piece of land that you list on the water or in a great city or with close proximity to restaurant shops, all the things. And that may be something that one of your sphere members would spend money on as an investment.
It's very true, and they also may know someone.
Mhm.
I have all of my sphere of influence inside of my database, and I'm very particular that I have a newsletter that I write personally. It's not canned. I write it. It's my photographs. And sometimes I'll tuck my listings into it, but a lot of times it's more of what am I thinking, and I have different sections on where to shop, where to eat, because people know that's what I like. But they also like getting my listings,
Mhm.
and they just like to see what you're doing as well, but a lot of times they will be the ones who will comment, and I know that they've shared it with people that are curious about what's happening with real estate, so it's a
Yeah.
great source of spreading the word.
Well, and I think that's built into your brand vision too, the restaurants, the lifestyle, what DC brings. And I have to put this in here for those who have made it this far in the podcast. I'm certain that the majority of my listeners know that I am a diehard Georgia Bulldog fan. Winning or losing, I wear the poncho when we lose, I wear the pom poms when we win. And I was scrolling through Sherri Ann's Instagram because we met through Realm Global, which is a luxury community that we both participate in or are members of, and I came across some red and black and her at the games and all the things. So I was super excited, first of all. And what really drew me to you is it's not about you. It's about you showcasing what DC brings, what different areas of DC brings. Tell us how that plays into your marketing strategies and what are some of those, if you could start today within your community, tips that you would have our listeners go and start building social posts around?
Absolutely. In my opinion, I'm selling a lifestyle. Living in Washington, D.C. is something that I don't ever take for granted. I moved to this city because of this city. I created my entire life around this city. So I knew that I wanted to move here. I had an aha moment. I don't know if I told you this ever, but I crossed the 14th Street Bridge in college. I came here for the National Student Advertising Competition, one of like 15 schools from across the country, Georgia. And the minute I crossed the 14th Street Bridge, I knew I was home. It was the biggest aha moment I've ever had in my life. I knew I would move back here. And so to me, showcasing that city in the way that I do is what's part of what I'm selling. It's the how exciting it is to live here, how honorable it is to live here. And it's easy, I think, to get caught up in how do I do that? But there's a post that I did pretty recently that's super easy. I stood outside one of my favorite stores and I said, "Do you know about Amano?" And I said, "Here's why I like it. Here are the things that I usually look for here: hostess gifts, baby gifts, closing gifts. I need to get a closing gift today. I'm going to go inside. Let's see what they have. Come along." And then that was it. So nobody in the store saw that I was doing it. I did it outside, the store. And then I walked in and I just took a few cute little short video clips and put them all together with some great music. And that's an easy way to do it if you're embarrassed and you shouldn't be, but even I get that way, like, "Oh, they're gonna think I'm so silly, like, do I have enough followers to even be doing this?" But if you're shy about doing it in front of the staff, inside of a place, or people that are there, just film it outside the front door and then take little clips or little photographs in the place and put them all together, and the truth is, the business will be elated that somebody is paying attention and focusing on them and showcasing them as part of the lifestyle.
And I'll say your brand really boasts consistency. Consistency in your posts, consistency in your style, the way your thumbnails look, the text that you use. You can tell that you're very articulate in the messaging, but also the presentation. If they only stop scrolling for 2 seconds, you
Mm.
get you, right? You get your brand. And if they stop and watch the whole thing, then it carries through, and that's something when I land on your Instagram page and you scroll down, there is definitely a brand voice on your page. Yeah. The fun. And I always say it's fun. The cute glasses, the fun moves, the Southern hospitality, taken to DC, all the things.
Yeah. Well, somebody said to me the other day, "It's very authentic." And that was quite the compliment to me. And I think it is. I try to sprinkle in a little bit of my humor without being totally ridiculous. But I also can be very serious about certain things and very professional. But life is also about having fun. So I try to sprinkle in all of those different, you know, versions of the real me.
Well, and I'm certain coming from the advertising world, you were managing deadlines, clients, projects, all of that at the same time. When you think about this business that you're running now at a very high level, what are some of those pieces that you put into place in your business that one still shows that you care, that create intentionality, and also allows you to grow the business to whatever your vision of success is?
That's a good question. I really think that my background is probably one of the strongest. When you think about what I did at the advertising agency, I was an account executive and I did the majority of our business development for almost my entire 17 years. And so you're correct. Managing multi-level contracts, I was part of a $450 million government contract. If you think an advertising contract, I mean, you think a real estate contract is long. So managing multiple projects, multiple clients, multiple deadlines, multiple personalities, creatives, research, strategy, the client, the other client, your own team, right? And then doing business development, constantly selling the agency to other people, and then constantly pitching ideas to our clients. And so seeing beautiful photography, seeing amazing video work, and seeing all those pieces come together. So all of that, and then negotiating, because you were negotiating with clients to get them to understand the idea you were pitching, the timeline that you had to follow. So all of those skills really translate into exactly what we do as an agent every day. All of the things that we do. The advertising is just the more beautiful piece of it. That's the visual piece that you see. But clients appreciate that you're following a timeline. They appreciate that you're keeping them informed. I think what we have to remember at the end of the day is, and I say this to my clients, your home is now a product. But we also have to remember that until those keys leave their hands and go to someone else's and the ink is signed, it is their home. Whether they live there, whether it's investment, whatever it is their home. And we have to treat it that way till the bitter end. And so that's where that communication comes into play is you've got to let them know what's happening with their house. Last night is a great example. My clients have moved to Australia and there was trash and recycling in their trash cans. I can't transfer the house that way. It won't work. So I said to them, "When does this go out?" And he told me. So today's the trash pickup day. So I literally texted my client and said, "Okay, the trash is out on the curb." I'm sure he doesn't care. I'm sure he thinks, "Oh, yeah, she's going to do that." But I wanted them to know in case the neighbor calls and says, "Why are your trash cans out?" Because I clearly have not gone back over there this morning to roll them back in yet. So I just thought if he gets a call, I don't want it to be from somebody saying your trash cans are out on the sidewalk. You need to pull those back in. I wanted him to know I'd roll them out and I'll take care of it. And those are the kinds of little tiny things that I think people appreciate.
Absolutely. And again, it goes back to the details and the over communication, right? And it
Absolutely.
just you want them to know what's going on. And two, I think it's good to tell them that we're doing more than just putting their home in MLS and praying that it sells.
Absolutely. It shows a total commitment to the process and to them.
I know this isn't something that we prepped for, but tell us a little bit about luxury real estate in the DC market right now with all of the changes going on. What does the landscape look like? What are some of the gorgeous homes that are on the market that we should be considering? What's going on?
Well, you look at all my listings. Those are the ones you consider.
Exactly.
So, Washington is an interesting place. For many years, I said we're in a bubble. It's been a really micro market. It is down to the neighborhood and the price point. And I know that people say, oh, that's always been true. It's never been as micro as it is today. So that's something we are seeing. You could put one home in this neighborhood, pick it up and move it over here. It's a completely different price point, a completely different timeline. And it's more drastic today. That might have always been true. It seems to be more drastic. The ultra luxury market in DC let's say 7, 10, 12, 25 has exploded in DC.
Wow.
And there aren't a lot of those homes, and so there's a need for them and a want for them at this particular time, which is a little bit unusual. So that part of the market we have seen move much faster than normal. We've seen some of our first-time home buyers slow down, and that's likely related to everything that's happening in the city in
Right.
addition to interest rates, even though we have I don't know, we're probably in the top 10% of, income levels across, but we're also probably in the top 10% of how expensive our housing is and how our cost of living is. But certain neighborhoods are moving faster than others. There are a lot of amazing houses on the market. I do have some beautiful listings, I must say. And then there happens to be a property on the market at the moment that Jack and Jackie Kennedy lived in. So that's always really cool.
That's fun.
So that's fun, to get to see and just to know about and to get to talk about. So DC's full of history, though. You can almost find history in any house. One of my favorite listings I had was a woman who had passed. Her family hired me, and she worked at the NSA. And she was, by all means, a spy for you know who, a country that I probably shouldn't name out loud. But she didn't really ever say that, of course, but we could tell just by, everything that we kind of pieced together and what she did. And how fascinating is that? That someone, she was probably in her 80s when she passed, 78, someone, 30, 40 years ago, this is what she was doing as a woman, being a spy. And you just, I mean, it's so great, right?
That's incredible. Those are like the things TV shows are made of.
Right, yeah. But that was really special to get to touch that piece of history,
Yeah.
and what she must have been thinking.
Right.
She probably wasn't talking about it.
That's incredible. Are you seeing, any new like, I'm sure some new construction, but is that a piece of your market right now? Are you primarily the older homes or what?
Yeah, there's a little bit of that. Right in DC proper, we don't have a lot of land left.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, there are newer developments like out where Walter Reed was, that whole community has been built. I wouldn't call that uber luxury or luxury necessarily. It's sort of housing that's more mainstream market. Bigger homes that are being created, they would be probably more out in Virginia, potentially along the river, out in Maryland. A lot of our new construction in DC is an older row home that gets gutted and redone and then sold. And so it's not new on the outside, but it is new on the inside. And so that's a lot of what we see in new construction or the gentrification of some neighborhoods where something does have to come down. But DC's very good in most neighborhoods about respecting the integrity of the historic nature of the house that already exists. So even if the developer only leaves the facade and takes everything else in the back, we try to leave a lot of that, you know, vision that we have of this city intact where possible, but it's not always possible. And a lot of times certain neighborhoods allow for the whole thing to start over.
And for my listeners out there, we don't typically spend time on markets on the podcast. And what I find interesting is in such, I call it a unique place like DC because it is transitional every 4 or 8 years. I'm always curious what's going on in these larger cities and what you're experiencing because it is somewhat of a bubble because it does lend itself to consistent migration in and out of the area. And so I would think, even though being in a bubble, that could, in my opinion, positively impact the housing market over negatively impacting the housing market, where you may have an area like for where I am in Wilmington, we're both primary residence as well as second home vacation rental. But at the same time, that's a little bit dictated by what the economy's doing, right? We have same thing. We have the ultra luxury beach homes and that sort of thing. But again, it's very dictated by what's going on economically. And so that's more why I was curious on, what do you see in your world? So I'm grateful for you spending a little time there and for our listeners taking time to listen because I think it's important to know what goes on nationally. And many of you may be in feeder markets in or out for the DC areas.
Absolutely. And I would like to say this because part of my job is selling this city. A lot of people think that our housing and everything else is very much dependent on politics, and I'd like to point out that it's not. A lot of people think that DC is only about government jobs, and it's not. And I think that that's really important for me to say. You're right. Every 4 years, there's a very large election, but that's not always where we see the largest swings in change. This particular administration has been a little bit different. A lot of the upper leadership has bought uber luxury homes. But a lot of what we see is people who live here and work academia, tech, hospitality, hospitals. There could be lobbyists, so, okay, they do relate to the federal government, but they're not moving in and out, if that makes sense. They're advancing from working on the Hill to being a lobbyist. So, I think it's important to know that a lot of our movement is not necessarily administration coming in, administration going out, House members coming in, House members going out, Senate, etcetera. It's a lot of career people who live in Washington because they love this city, because it's just so fabulous culturally, diversity-wise, food-wise, all the things.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's very interesting and good to know, right? And I do see DC, much like New York, a very easy to connect type of place, transportation wise. And so that I have clients here that have a place in New York and they love New York. That's why they're there. And it's easy transportation to overseas if they have overseas jobs or contracts and that sort of thing. So, I think there's a lot of opportunity there as the world is becoming more remote. And the world has gotten bigger but smaller with travel. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. So, if you could leave our listeners with one more action item, and I do have a chore for us before we go. If you could leave our listeners with one more action item that they could implement this year that will help
Hmm.
their businesses grow, what would you offer?
I would say let's go back to something we talked about earlier, which is showcasing where you live in your social media, in your newsletter. I think that that's really important. We are selling more than bedrooms and bathrooms. We are selling how someone is going to live, interact, engage, and create a community. And the more that you can showcase that as the expert who lives there, the more people will understand not only what it's like to work with you, but what it's like to live there and be part of that community. And it can excite them from the beginning, especially if it's a hard move. Like, wow, we didn't really want to move to this place, but we got this job. Tell them why it's great. Let them know it's going to be okay. And I think that doing that through your social media can be very helpful for them and very effective for your own business.
I agree. And to tag on to that, it's also really great for your sellers who are looking for a real estate agent who gets it, right? Because our job, regardless of where they want to price the home, is to help them understand that we are going into the sale of their home as optimistic. We are putting on those rose colored glasses and we are promoting their home at the highest level. And the ability to have knowledge and communicate the community helps the seller know that you get it. You are going to be able to sell my home because you get it about this area.
I think that's a great way to frame it.
It really elevates your listing opportunities
Mhm.
as well.
Absolutely.
So, Sherry Ann doesn't know about this, but we have to leave them with a go dogs, right? Because this isn't coming out until December. However, we'll maybe know the end of this year's football season, but we have to leave them with a go dogs. Okay, so on the count of three, we'll leave them with a go dogs.
We doing the whole go dogs, the whole
Yeah,
I'm ready.
go
Go
dogs.
dogs! Stick 'em!
Sick 'em.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
All right. Never done that on a podcast. There's a first time for everything. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will see you next time on Real Estate Leadership Unlocked.